So I'm Rob Heckel, and today we're going to be talking about cruising the AI highway and how we standardized MCP deployments and integrated them into our Backstage instance. So yes, I'm Rob Heckel. I'm a recovering system administrator. Spent a little bit of time as a software engineer, still doing DevOps stuff, platform engineering, and now messing around a lot with generative AI inside of our organization.
Yeah. My name's Tyler. I'm a platform engineer at Toyota Connected. One of the things we were supposed to do, Rob, you skipped out, but we were supposed to say our favorite cloud-native project. Mine is obviously Backstage, and there's good reason for it. I'm not just saying that. Our organization started with a homegrown internal developer platform built on Django, and since we moved over to Backstage, we've actually gotten a lot more adoption with our developer platform, and it's a lot faster to build features. We really love the plugin infrastructure.
And my favorite project is actually Cert Manager. Being an old sysadmin, you all know what happens when certs go bad. So moving right along, we come to you from Toyota Connected, and we are on a journey to deliver memorable customer mobility experiences that will define the future of mobility. We divide ourselves into two different segments. One half is for in-car experiences. The other half is for out-of-car experiences. And so from an in-car experiences perspective, we have our labs team, and they are handling the voice assistant inside of the vehicle and the head unit. And then we also have our DriveLink team, which is the telematics platform. They're on the out-of-car side of things, and they help power Toyota and Lexus Safety Connect for vehicles in North America. We also have our mobility team that uses data to build and deliver in-car or out-of-car solutions, And now let me give you some numbers. We have over 12.5 million vehicles on our DriveLink connected platform. We've handled over 5.5 million telematics calls with our customers, and each month we handle 29 billion transactions. We do this with approximately 200 employees within the United States. So what are we going to cover today? The agenda is we're going to go over some MCP basics for those that aren't intimately familiar with it. We'll cover the what and the why there. We'll also share how all of the cloud-native projects enabled us to deliver MCP servers quickly. We'll cover how we deployed, once those are deployed, how we actually integrate those into Backstage. And from there on, we'll explain what it all looks like tied together and some of our key learnings for that integration. So MCP in one line, it's kind of a lie. We're going to go with 2 slides on this one. So when we all started using generative AI with our coding, we had the choice of AI tools, right? Developers manually gathered context. And so what did that look like? Developer probably, and your experience might look a little bit different, but this is ours. So you might go into Jira, you might look over the ticket details, you might find other related tickets, and you might look at the total epic and what you're actually working toward. And then you're going to probably go into GitLab or GitHub, right? Everybody's different. And look at the different code diffs and where the features and functionality are that you want to implement. And then you probably go over to GitHub to check out release notes, breaking changes, all that fun stuff. And then finally, you're probably going to go into your Confluence or however you're handling your internal storage or your internal knowledge. And so what's that? That's a lot of manual effort for developers. A lot of copy pasta and potential, as soon as you introduce a human in the loop, it adds a potential for failures. And also, when you don't have that context, you may suffer from hallucinations with your AI model. One of those things that we've seen a lot of is old code examples, right? Especially in rapidly evolving projects. So this was good. This was a really good start with AI, but obviously there was something missing, right? And so we moved on to MCPs, Model Context Protocol. It's an open standard that allows AI applications to gather context or act on your behalf. with external applications in a consistent and modular way. So using generative AI, you might integrate with all of these different things to gather new context, right? You might go out to AWS and Kubernetes, or your cloud of choice. I'm not going to be specific there. To grab context about your deployments. You might dig even deeper than an individual developer might in a really fast way. Additionally, I mentioned something about old, outdated examples inside of the model that it may have been trained on. And so we're big users on Context 7. So if you haven't used it, check it out. It's the best way to get up-to-date examples and actual documentation for the libraries and different tools you're using. And so congratulations, generative AI is now intelligent. And so what did we want to build? We wanted a sustainable template which would enable developers to deploy MCPs within our platform. And so we wanted something easy, scalable, secure, sustainable, and we wanted to remove barrier to entry for any application developers to deploy a functional prototype while also providing a legitimate path into production. And so this probably looks familiar. Ours is a little dressed up, but this is the entry point that our developers see when they want to deploy an MCP. It says 60 seconds. It probably takes closer to 5 minutes, but who's counting? They fill in 4 fields. Who the owner of the MCP is going to be, what the department is, the name of the MCP, and a short description, right? Click submit, and now you're going off to the races. So what you're seeing here is an actual run, probably sped up quite a bit. And so we create a project inside of GitLab. We plumb up all the CI pipelines, and so it's building containers at this point. We're using Customize to actually edit the Argo files that we're using for the deployment as well. And by the time we're done, this actually handles a lot of different merge requests. And so, yeah, we push it into Argo. Argo picks it up and automatically deploys the application. And so we put the final touches on it with, external DNS and external secrets operator. External secrets operator is also one of my favorite projects too. So, and with the magic of PowerPoint and elapsed time, this is what Tyler was able to build in a matter of minutes. We have an MCP, and we've plumbed it up, and we're going to check and see what talks are happening at Backstage Con on Monday. There we go. There's one MCP-related talk at Backstage Con, and you're listening to it right now. All right. And so from a self-service perspective, this is kind of like our NASCAR slide, everything that helps us pull these things together and deliver these in a fast, meaningful way. Obviously, we're at Backstage Con. We're using a lot of Backstage. We have Argo, we have Prometheus, we have open costs so that the application owners can get a reasonable understanding of what those costs are and how they can potentially improve those. You'll notice there that we're big open tofu users, and obviously Kubernetes, right? We have a lot of baked-in monitoring already with Datadog, and then Cert Manager, external DNS, and that's me. I love all of these different tools. So now I'm going to hand it off to Tyler so that he can talk about the full Backstage integration.
All right, so Rob showed us how we're going to automate the MCP infrastructure deployment, and we wanted to integrate this into Backstage kind of cleanly. And the Backstage catalog is awesome. It's dynamic. So just right away, when we do the deployment, we'll have a catalog info YAML. We'll throw type MCP in there, and bam, it shows up in the catalog. But we wanted to take it one step further where, OK, what happens when you click in? You'll have all those standard integrations that Rob had talked about, but we want something MCP related. So we move on to the MCP entity tab. And what we've done here is we've showed, okay, what are the tools, the prompts, and the resources that this MCP server provides? We'll show that right on the Entity tab. This is, I'm thinking of it as like a API spec for MCP. You'll be able to see, developers will be able to see what does this MCP server provide right within Backstage. We'll consolidate all that information. Backstage is an information aggregator. It's the perfect place to put this. And so the question is, how did we make this happen? So traditionally, the way MCP servers will expose the tools, prompts, resources, the AI tool will connect to that server, and then that server will say, hey, here's all the tools, the prompts, the resources that I provide. So we could build that out in Backstage. So we could have some sort of backend plugin within Backstage that will do that connection. We'll connect in, we'll ask, hey, what tools do you have? And it'll respond with the tools, the prompts, the resources, and then we can build that Entity tab page, no problem. But the problem comes in when we add authentication to our servers, which we're going to be adding our authentication to these servers most likely. Not everything is going to have authentication like Context 7, Rob talked about. Probably no reason to actually use that API key. But this is a problem for us where we want people to add their MCP servers and then be able to modify those MCP servers to add things as far as they would like, but how do we still keep Backstage dynamic? And so we add OAuth, we add a token auth. Backstage no longer can easily connect to these MCP servers to ask, hey, what tools do you have? So this was the problem we set out to solve for this Entity tab. And so like a rudimentary thing we looked at was we used FastMCP in the infrastructure automation. So FastMCP actually has this really cool inspect functionality. We'll go ahead and run that locally, and it will generate this JSON. We'll store that JSON in the repository, and then Backstage can just look at that generated JSON. This was great. This was an easy way to build that Entity tab and still show all the details, but you know, us as developers are not so good at keeping documentation up to date, so we still wanted to make it dynamic. How can we make this dynamic? One of the cool things is we had full control over the infrastructure automation. So within FastMCP, we created an endpoint that will kind of pretty much run what FastMCP inspect does behind the scenes. And so we'll have two endpoints. One is the MCP endpoint, and one is that docs endpoint. There was actually a really cool RFC we found online that said something similar, and we followed that to make this happen. So when you deploy a MCP server using our automation within our company, we'll go ahead and give you those two endpoints right out of the box. And then Backstage will dynamically hook up to that endpoint to generate that Entity tab. But you know, there's going to be a lot of people that have their own mono repos. They say, hey, I don't actually want to use your automation, but I still want to surface tools, prompts, and resources from my MCP server within your catalog. How do we make that happen? Well, we'll have a fallback. AI tool will still, Backstage will still connect to the docs endpoint if it exists. If not, we'll look at that JSON and say, hey, if you're going to use the mono repo approach, you're just going to be responsible for keeping that JSON up to date, but we'll make sure to show it. We'll make sure it's beautiful. And then the final thing we do is if you have a type MCP within our catalog, you don't have the docs endpoint, you don't have that JSON, we'll show a nice little blurb. Okay, here's how you can generate that JSON so you can provide actionable results within the Entity tab. The other thing we did is we created this MCP Hub plugin. And there's three parts to this plugin. We have an internal registry, a community picks, and a Kickstarter. And I'll start with the internal registry. And the internal registry is really just a rehashed version of that first image I shared, which was the catalog. One of the things we noticed within our organization is the catalog is awesome. But for some users, it's a little bit intimidating. We'll see them click in. They are not sure where to go, and they click out. So it's been useful for us to pull out features that we want to highlight. So we'll still use all of the backend. We'll pretty much use the catalog API to pull out, okay, these are just the MCP servers that we provide. We've also done this for something we call cloud accounts. This is our AWS accounts and our GCP accounts, and we've found high value by doing this. We'll still integrate with the catalog. Like you see, we have the star for favorites, so all those integrations are there. But we wanted to just highlight this feature as it's new and upcoming. The second tab, Community Picks, this one's fun. Not all MCP servers are going to be built in-house. There's going to be tons of community MCPs like Context 7, like Playwright, like AWS Documentation MCP. Where can the community within our company go to find these resources? They can come to this Community Picks tab. And one really cool thing we've done is we've integrated with information security at our company, so InfoSec can come in and actually rate these community MCP servers. So a lot of times people are messaging in Slack or messaging in DMs or messaging behind the scenes to InfoSec saying, hey, can I use this server? And why don't we just surface that in one place, consolidate all that information, and create a community? And that's what this tab has enabled us to do. And one of the other things we've learned from Backstage is people don't like filling out lengthy forms. So what we do is we say, hey, just put in a GitHub link, and we'll use Sonnet 4.5 behind the scenes to generate all that information that you see in that card. So the title, the summary, the tags all get generated through Sonnet. It's been great for us. And then the final thing we've done is we created a Kickstarter, which is really just a guide to get people set up. Our organization is heavy into using Claude Code, GitHub Copilot. So what we've done is we've walked our developers or anybody, any persona, how to get a MCP like Atlassian, that's a big one within our company. How do we get that set up within Claude Code, within VS Code Copilot from start to finish? So one of the things we noticed is there's a little bit of AI hesitancy. Not with everybody, maybe with 50% of the developers within our company. How do we dip their toes into the water and get them a little bit more acclimated? We're seeing, okay, some of these people who are on the fence about AI, they're starting to use Copilot more. They're starting to use Claude Code more. And so it's like, okay, you've seen some value in that. Now try this. And so that's what this page is intended to do. And so the one thing we want you all to take away from our presentation is, first, the industry hasn't standardized on a lot of this MCP documentation stuff. So this might not be best practice, but we're trying to follow where the industry is going by utilizing what's already out there, like using Fast MCP Inspect as an example and building off that. And the reality is we're not claiming to know what we're doing. But we want to share, like, why did we do all this? I think it's really important. First of all, we're trying to get ahead of the curve. So when teams and executives really start pushing on AI, we'll have the infrastructure in place. We'll be ready for when the people come. But there's also a bigger reason. If I'm going to talk bluntly, I think one of the elephants in the room with platform engineering is adoption, right? It can be hard to get people to use our platforms. You can force people in. You can say, hey, this is the only way to do things, or you can organically get people in by providing value. And whenever I read or listen to a podcast of, okay, how do we get adoption within our developer platform? There's always the advice of go to your customers, figure out the pain points, and automate them. And that works. That's amazing. But what happens when you've run out of those ideas? When you go to your customers, they say, hey, we're good. There's nothing more that we think you can automate. And you know, that's tough. That's a tough position to be in because we still need to build a roadmap. We still need to provide value to our customers. So how do we do that? What we're sharing here in all of these slides is how we've gone about that path. How are we continuing to build value for our users after we've exhausted all those obvious automations? So we're taking calculated risks. We think that this is going to be a high-value subject. We can see the writing on the wall. So we're getting ahead of these features, and we're building plugins around them. And this isn't the first thing we've done like this. we've had success through these ideas. Our adoption has been increasing quarter over quarter. So if there's anything we'd like you to walk away from this presentation with, we hope we've sparked some sort of idea. Maybe one of these slides, you'd say, oh, I like that idea. I'm going to bring it back to my organization. Hopefully you build it even better. And yeah, whether it's infrastructure automation or integrating MCP into your platform, we look forward to what you all build. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Yep. Oh, you got them? Get my cardio in.
Thank you. By the way, it's a phenomenal job, guys. Great job. My question is, it is amazing you guys are leveraging the benefits of MCP to encapsulate the underlying tools for in your ecosystem. So my question is, how do you envision, what is your expectation from a Backstage UI perspective, which is still point products? You go to a Backstage UI and you see tabs for Argo, tabs for Jira, tabs for X, Y, and Z. Even that with MCP, I would say in 5 or 7 years from now, I think this concept of point products will be completely abstracted from the end users, from the developers. What is your take on that, trying to leverage MCP to encapsulate tools and having Backstage is still exposing all this tool set?
Well, I guess I'll try to field that one. Honestly, what I would love is to actually be able to integrate directly with MCPs from within Backstage itself. And I also look forward to actually leveraging Backstage's own MCPs so that we can pull that data out and use it at some point whenever we need that data and pull that contextual awareness out into our projects as we use them. As far as everything from a UI perspective, I already think it's starting to get a little bit crowded. And I think there's a place where, obviously, if something isn't enabled for an object inside of the catalog, maybe just don't show it. Don't show the tabs, hide the tabs. And then on the other side of that, it's like almost which tools or which tabs do you show for which types of items inside of your catalog as well? Because not everything's going to need observability, right? Well, sorry, everybody. But you understand what I mean. Like maybe not everything gets Jira. Maybe not everything has, maybe everything doesn't have an MCP tab, right? Only things of type MCP should maybe have MCP stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks. Did you have one else question?
Hello. Hey, great presentation. So my question is, are there any MCP security measures that you've incorporated into the system? Because it feels like you've opened up MCP deployment to anyone in the organization, but not sure if that's a good idea. Like, how do you protect against MCP poisoning and stuff like that?
I would say that's something that we're seriously considering, right? We're not for one, we're not exposing these directly to the outside world. So it's in our internal network, which, you know, with everything you just said, could be a blessing or a curse, right? But at that same point, as we develop those best practices in working hand in hand with our InfoSec teams, we're able to standardize on those and then deliver them later on to all of our other teams. We've actually started working quite a bit on OAuth implementation for our MCPs, if I'm not mistaken. That's in our next phase.
Automating the secrets.
You can talk more about it.
I think that's a really good question. That's something InfoSec is harping on us, to be honest. One of the things we're looking to do is with the infrastructure automation, how do we also automate access to secrets? So these pods can then have a pull in secrets, and then we'll have access to a secrets manager, which we can then more easily automate, like OAuth from the jump. That would be our end goal. Our
Okay.
next goal, actually.
Got it. Thank you.
Awesome. Anything else? Alrighty. Thank you.
Thank you.